Could we have someone do an opening address, please? Chief Joanne?
Akwesasne di don ho no ni gona dan de chi don wala de se gwa de so ki se bo de ni go no lista ni gwa kemas na ho de los ni valioso wa jarga di ko tamonia poka de ni tok ni gwa ni gona
Young Chief Joanne? Okay, council attendance. So, for the record, we have Chief Fallon David sends her regrets. Oh, she's on Zoom?
yeah
Okay, Chief Fallon David is on Zoom. So therefore, all council is present. I was just gonna ask where she is. Chief Tisha's on Zoom as well? Oh, Chief Tisha's out? Okay. Okay. Now this is a section where we do a 30 seconds for a moment of silence, and we're gonna start that for all of those that we lost and those that we're about to lose, and to their families. So we're gonna take that time out of respect for these next 30 seconds. Okay, yeah. Okay, council agenda acceptance. So we have our rules of order. We have our presentation for the MCA Budget 2025-2026. Then we have a presentation for the MCA Audit for the year 2023 to 2024. Then we have a resolution for the general meeting minutes dated Enniskó, March 27, 2025. And our announcements, we're looking at Onerahtohkó, MCA General Meeting. And we are then going to adjourn, but are closing in our motion to adjourn. Do we have someone to move?
Chief Lacey.
Chief Lacey, and second? Chief Cindy, all in favor, please raise your hand. Let the record show, carried. Okay. So we're looking at our rules of order. We're not gonna be following the general meeting rules of order as they're written, because this is a special general meeting. We're here to focus on our agenda items. We will stick to the beginning start time at 6, and we will end at 8 p.m. What we're gonna do is when the presenters are up here presenting their information, we're gonna hold all questions till the end, and so then like keep track of what are questions that you have. And then at the end, that's when those questions we're gonna bring to the floor, and we'll answer any questions that we get online as well. When our presenters are up here, please be patient, let them, get through their information. What we found is some of the information may be coming, so it's good to hold your questions because they could be answered in the slides to follow. So with that being said, we're gonna welcome up our first presentation for the MCA budgets for the 2025.
So with respect to time, council has asked that we go over the numbers today and the data rather than the narrative highlights of the program that take a long time. So at our last meeting, we ended in the middle of the AMBI narrative. So that moves us ahead to the Department of Public Safety. And so I'll turn it over to our Director of Finance and Administration to present that information.
Thank you for having me here. It's always a pleasure. Said that with a straight face. So we're presenting now public safety, that our public safety is now being disassembled back into the police station, and the other programs will be dispersed amongst the other MCA programs. So for those of you who have been waiting for that, it's done. Most of the police's revenue comes from their tripartite agreement, which is an agreement between Akwesasne, the federal government, the Ontario government, and the province of Quebec. In addition, we do, the police do apply for different funding for different programs. So there's JIT, which is their Joint Investigation Team, SAVE, which is our, I don't know the acronym, but I know it's our guys, our police out on the boats. Missing and murdered Indigenous women funding, human trafficking. So AMP's total funding is $11 million. Salaries and benefits for the police, we do have police parity with our constables. Salary and benefits come in at $8.1 million, portfolio charges $66,000, purchase services $235,000, various equipment $843,000, office rentals and maintenance $324,000, and then Mohawk Council does charge them a service delivery fee of about $500,000. So for the total expense of AMPS, we have $11 million in, $11 million out. We're not allowed to carry forward with this funding. It's a very, we are allowed to carry forward, but we're not allowed to spend it on anything except for police services. So with AMPS, as it was presented for this fiscal year, Public Safety did have a compliance officer that does community bylaw enforcement. And their budget, their anticipated funding was $138,000, and their expenses came in at $143,000 for a very small deficit. Our ambulance unit, and this isn't the first time I've said this, and it should not come as a surprise, our ambulance unit is grossly underfunded. Nobody will service our area, so we have to do our own ambulance services. So we get a very, very small contribution from Quebec of $105,000. They do manage to generate different revenues at another $100,000. So we have an income of $694,000, salary and benefits of $2.8 million. We are paying parity. Our salaries are driven by the market forces, and we are trying to be fair to our ambulance people. So that should not come as a shock. We do have a number of paramedics and advanced EMTs on staff, and we should be proud of our people that are doing that, because most of them are our people. Purchase services of $83,000, equipment of $295,000. We are trying to invest in our ambulance, and by ordering one new ambulance every year to make sure our fleet's able to run. And then small costs of service delivery. So our costs are 2.6 with an overall deficit of $2 million. Emergency measures was placed under public security. It will be pulled out for a revenue of about $70,000 with costs, total cost of about $257,000. That is grossly underfunded, but it's something we have to have. So we have to invest in that. So for total public safety, total $12.8 million. Total expenses of $15 million, most of that deficit coming from our ambulance services, which I don't think we should sacrifice, for an overall deficit of $2.1 million. Department of Health, we're going to quickly flick through. This presentation is available online if community wants to read the narrative. So Department of Health went through a restructure, and they built into different sectors. So there's health administration, community health, mental health and wellness, clinical care, continuing care, and the overall health. So community health will do the programming like immunization, public health. Mental health and wellness is for our traditional medicine and helping with our minds. Clinical care is all of our medical clinics, our medical clinics and our clinical services. And then continuing care is our elder services. So we are pretty well funded up for all of our health services, and they spend it. So health administration, they get the bulk. We put the bulk of the revenue there, $16 million for administration, salary and benefits. So as you can see, we put the revenue there, but it'll flow through the rest of the programming. Community health, $6.5 million. Most of our money comes from ISK in the province of Ontario. $6.5 million for community health, salaries and benefits at $3.7. We do pay our nurses at market rate because we want our nurses to stay here within the community. We do pay our PSWs at market rate because we want to keep our people in our community, so we have to be competitive with salaries. Purchase services, 984,000, equipment, 89,000, rentals, those are internal charges of 214. Special projects of 500,000, so total operational cost of 6.5 million, so they basically even out. Mental health and wellness, 2.6 million in revenue. Salary and benefits of 1.5 million. Purchase services of these are our mental health therapists and our traditional teachers, our traditional medicine people. $1 million, equipment, 162,000, rentals and service delivery is about 225 and 149,000 each. Other operational costs of 257, so again, 2.6 million in, 2.6 million out, we spend to budget within health. Our clinical care sector, 6.5 million, salaries and benefits of 4.6. So what to highlight here is the 839 of purchase services. Those are our doctors. Those are our doctors and our medical professionals. Again, whatever we bring in, we spend out. So 6.5 million in revenue, we spend it. We spend up to our health budgets. And then continuing care, funding of 9.5 million. Is that right? 9.5 million with costs of 11 million. So this is an ongoing issue with deficits in our elders facilities of $2 million. We have had studies done on what we can do to improve those costs while still trying to maintain the residents' costs of staying there. So we don't want to overcharge our residents to recoup this, but it is a study that we are looking into fixing. So for total health, 41.6 million in, 41.6 million out. They have a very small deficit of 214,000. Go ahead, Dante. Wait, you skipped justice. Okay, thank you. So Department of Justice is a very small department. We have Justice Admin, Legislative Services, ARAP, the Mohawk Court, and Community Justice. We are not funded, Justice Services is not funded on First Nations in Canada. We are a rarity across Canada to have our own justice system. Legislative Services, that money right now is being funded from a social program, which is to do with capacity development. ARAP is another social program that receives funding from the FNCFS, Canadian Human Rights Tribunal Court, and that's to help children who are in care in the foster care system. We do receive a number of pockets of money for community justice. Rena Smoke is the manager there, and she manages maybe 15 different pots of money for her revenue. So Justice has a total revenue of 6.2 million. Our admin costs is 313,000. Legislative Services 348. ARAP 4.5 million in anticipated costs. Court 616,000. And then Community Justice, they spend what they get, and we did kind of throw them a curveball by making their salaries parity, because Ontario won't fund 100% of salaries, and that is going to be an ongoing issue. So for the Justice total, 6.2 million in, 7 million in expenses, 806 goes to our overall deficit, which is covered by the rest of Mohawk Council. Infrastructure, housing, and environment. We have housing, the first three columns is housing in this. We have housing administration, we have ban on rentals, and we do run CMHC projects. I am proud to say that we've been running CMHC for now 25 years, and we've actually handed over our first set of houses to community members. So it's quite a milestone to see that that project is still continuing. We have wastewater and wastewater, the environment, fire department and garbage, roads, the IHE administration, and building maintenance. So those are the programs within the DIHE. Housing administration receives most of their funding from Indigenous Services Canada and rentals through rental fees to community members who rent apartments. So housing administration, a total revenue of 2.1 million. Banner Rentals has a revenue of 417,000. CMHC Rentals 472,000. Water, wastewater, we're pretty well funded at 1.3 million. Environment has been working hard under the program manager, Kayla Sunday, to get more revenue in. She's doing a very good job. They're showing a revenue of 1.9 million. Fire department and garbage, 1.3 million. Roads, 558,000, and then DIH administration, 158,000. And then all of our building maintenance coming in at 7.2 million. So salary and benefits collectively are sitting at I think that's $9 million. Portfolio charges of 132, purchase services of 2.194 million. Half of that is our garbage fees. Our garbage fees are totaling about $1 million a year. Equipment of 453, capital projects are ongoing and presented in a different budget that we did last session. And then service delivery of 900,000, other operational costs of 5.5 million. So for DIHE, a total revenue of 15.7 million and the total expenses of 19.2 million. I hear you, Melissa, but we are one of the largest First Nations in Canada. Department of Economic Development, so we have a number of programs underneath economic development. We have administration, tobacco and cannabis, the operations of the Peachtree Mall, Thompson Island, the Arena, and Stanley Island. So administration, internal revenue of 900,000. Most of that comes from Indigenous Services Canada. Our tobacco, cannabis revenue of 113. That's very much in and out. We buy cigarettes, we give them to the shops to sell, so it's a cost right in, right out. Peachtree Mall revenue of 140. Thompson Island, a revenue of 100,000. Arena revenue of 389. So a total revenue in the department of 1.56 million. Salary and benefits across the board of 1.5 million. Portfolio allocations of 66,000. Equipment of 323. Office rentals, and then reallocation of other funding. And then other operational costs of 1.2. So totals for economic development is 1.6 million in, 2.1 million out, and most of that is coming from the Arena because they don't generate enough revenue to cover their costs. Go ahead, Dante. That's it. That's the presentation. We weren't able to finish last week. Are there any questions?
Oh, yeah.
That hand couldn't have went up fast enough.
How come the police get so much more money than anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna use an example. Let's say the welfare recipients. How come they get so little and everybody else, all in your criteria category, they need to get more than everybody else? Why?
I don't necessarily, but in respect to who though, because we have to compare apples to apples. So we have to compare what our police force gets to other police forces in Canada, right? So I'm not really sure if I understand your question. If we compare our funding compared to other police forces in Canada, we're probably underfunded. So, but if you want to compare our income support charges compared to like downtown Toronto, I have to say that we're more generous with our current rates right now than downtown Toronto, because I did look, because I don't know how people can live off of that support. And there are a number of initiatives coming up this fiscal year to help with the tariffs, the inflation, food insecurities. We are concentrating on that because, like seeing this, we do have enough money to have a healthy community. So that's what we're going to start concentrating on. For police, I mean, that's our choice. We entered into that quadpartite agreement. I did myself personally go against, I didn't wanna seek, OPP parity here because we are 2/3 in Quebec, 1/3 in Ontario. I did lose that, I lost that argument. So I had to put my head down and move forward. So I tried, and that's all you can do, you know, sometimes you try, sometimes you fail. So, did you have any more questions? Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Are you ready for the next one, Don? He's not here. I was notified this is my job to do. He was here to help me if I had questions that I couldn't answer, but I think I got it. We're gonna be out of here by 7. So this is the audited, consolidated financial statement for the year ended March 31st, 2024. So it is a bit old, and this presentation is a bit overdue. So I'm just gonna go through the objectives of the audit, why we're doing this, why we do all of this. So the objectives of the audit, to ensure the financial statements accurately reflect the organization's financial position. Evaluate compliance, verify that the organization complies with relevant laws, regulations, and standards. Identify risks, detect any financial or operational risks that could impact the organization. Provide recommendations to enhance financial management and operational efficiency. Enhance transparency. Promote transparency and accountability within the organization. So that's the purpose of the audit. Objectives: the scope, financial statements, examination of the balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statements, and notes to the financial statements. Internal controls, evaluation of the effectiveness of internal controls over financial reporting. Compliance, assessment of adherence to relevant laws, regulations, policies, and industry standards. Operational processes, review of any key operational processes to ensure efficiency and effectiveness, and then risk management. Analysis of risk management strategies and practices. So, introduction, audit processes, planning, notification. The auditor informs the organization of the upcoming audit and its scope. Preliminary survey, gathering information about the organization's operations, internal control of financial operating systems. Audit plan, the plan is developed and outlining the specific procedures to be informed. Field work, they test the internal controls, evaluating the effectiveness of the organization's internal controls to prevent or detect errors and fraud. Examination transactions, for example, what that means is we have a rule on the book that says any expense over $100,000 requires an MCR. So when the auditor comes in, they'll look at the transactions over $100,000 and they'll say we need to see the MCR on that. And if we don't produce that MCR, we're breaking our own rules. So that's what I mean by examining transactions. Selecting and examining sample transactions to verify the accuracy and propriety. So if they do start finding something wrong, they dig harder and further. So after a while, they'll want to see all transactions. Analyzing financial statements. Review the organization's financial statements and supporting documentation to assess their reliability. Are they real? Are they true? Are they done according to the rules? Reporting, audit report and preparation, summarizing the audit findings, conclusions, and recommendations in a formal report. Issuing the audit report, distributing the report to the appropriate individuals within the organization. Follow-up, reviewing management response, assessing the organization. So if they find something wrong in our books, then they're gonna tell us, and we have to say why they found that wrong, why it's off. Monitoring and implementation, verifying that the recommendations have been implemented effectively. So when they say we have to do something, we have to change our processes to get that work done. Go ahead, Dante. So, executive summary, key findings, qualified opinion. The independent auditor's report issued a qualified opinion due to council's incomplete analysis of its legal obligation associated with the retirement of certain tangible capital assets. So this is okay, but it's not, it's a B, it's not an A. I like A's. This includes the cost for removal and disposal of asbestos within council buildings, decommissioning or removal costs associated with arena infrastructure, site restoration for self-storage facilities, lagoon site restoration, and costs associated with the removal of sewage infrastructure. So basically, Canada put in a new rule, and they said everybody across the country now has to have this new analysis done on, if I'm gonna tear this school down right here, how much is the environmental cleanup going to be? So we have to do the complete analysis of our 40 buildings to determine how much to retire all of those assets properly to do no environmental harm. And we didn't do it. But you look at most financial statements in Canada, neither did anybody else. So it's an acceptable, I guess, X on your paper. So, statement of financial position, our total financial assets increased from 521 million to 521 million from 455 million. So we had an increase of 65 million. Total financial liabilities increased from 92 million to 128. An increase of 35 million. Net financial assets increased from 363 million to 393 million, plus $30 million. And our accumulated surplus increased from 495,000 to 536 million, millions of dollars in 2023 for an increase of 41 million. Go ahead, Dante, thank you. So executive summary, key findings, revenues and expenses, total revenues for the year were 179 million, up 22 million from the previous year. Total expenses, 138 million, up from 118 in 2023. That's an increase of 19 million, and our annual surplus was 41 million, up from 38, so an increase of $2 million. So key revenue sources, most of our revenue comes from Indigenous Services Canada. Government transfers amounted to 146 million. That was an $8 million increase. And then interest, we do have a lot of investments. Whenever we're not using money, we put it in short-term investments. And this does reflect also the 240 million that's sitting there for the Dundee Trust. So that's our interest came to 19 million, up from 11 million, so it's a plus 8.9 million. Key expense areas, salary, benefits, and honoraria total 62 million, up 7 million in the fiscal year. Program supplies increased to 25 million, up 8 million. Professional fees increased to 9 million from 6 million. Go ahead, Dante. So executive summary, key findings, the net book value of tangible capital assets increased to 122 million from 114. Tangible capital assets under construction, so these are capital projects, increased to 20 million from 17. We have a deferred revenue increased to 87 million from 59 million. And that's a result of the FNCFS, Canadian Human Rights Tribunal lawsuit. Contingencies and commitments, the council has guaranteed outstanding loans under the loan facility program totaling $3.7 million. The council is economically dependent on revenue from the Indigenous Services Canada and Health Canada. Subsequent events include council plans to transfer the Dundee Land Claim Settlement Funds valued at $254 million to a trust based on community consultation. The Mohawk Council of Akwesasne has shown significant financial growth with increased revenues, expenses, and net financial assets. However, the qualified opinion from the auditor highlights the need for further analysis and compliance regarding asset retirement obligations. The council's financial health is strong, but attention to compliance and legal obligation is necessary to ensure stability and transparency. So our statement of financial positions, our assets, contribution receivable, important receivable, receivables include 4.3 million for the fiber to the home. So these oddballs could be skewing this a little bit, our contribution receivables. All amounts are expected to be collected in 24-25. Accounts receivable, a year-over-year increase of 5.2 million is driven by 4.5 million of high accrued investment interest. So again, we're getting investment income. No changes for the allowance for doubtful accounts. Housing loans, new housing loans in 2024 amounted to 400,000. Payments received in the year were 700,000. No changes to the allowance of doubtful accounts in 2024. Investment in government entities, we are invested in the Akwesasne Harbor Development Corporation. We do partner with Cornwall on the harbor, and then we are entered into the, it's not OLG, Hydro One Sovereign Wealth Fund, where the First Nations across Ontario do own a portion of Hydro One. We weren't able to put a number on that investment yet because we're still paying off the loan the First Nations took to buy the shares of that company. So we are bothering them for how much is this really worth, so we can start reflecting that on our financial statements. Statement of financial position assets, MCA purchased 449 million of investments in fiscal year 23-24, and MCA redeemed 885 of investments. So what happens is we get a number of funding at the beginning of the year. Even if we invest them on a 90-day and break them in 3 months, we're still accumulating investments. So we invest everything and then we break them as we need them for operations. So all investments are made in low-risk bonds, mutual funds, and fixed income securities. So we're not, under the financial administration law, we're not allowed to do high-risk investments with community dollars. Statement of financial position liabilities, year-over-year increase mainly due to 5.1 million in retroactive salaries. We did go to market with all of the positions across the organization because our people were leaving for jobs off the reserve. You know, if you could make $30 over there, even paying tax, and we were only paying you 25, you weren't gonna stay. So we're trying to get our people to stay within our community and work here. A $6.4 million IFN flow-through of ISK money is skewing these results here of the accounts payable, and accruals of 3.7 million of non-insured health benefits to vendors. Deferred revenue, ISK funding deferred increased by 27 million, which is mainly contributed to the First Nation Child and Family Services funding of 23.1 million. Ontario funding deferrals decreased by 0.4 million. Quebec funding deferrals increased by 0.2 million. Other federal funding deferrals increased by 1.3 million, which is mainly attributed to CMHC initiatives. Other funding deferrals decreased by $500,000. No amount significant to note. So we are moving a lot of money around here. So important capital projects completed in 23-24, Park Street and Hilltop and Buckshot Road, totaling 2.7 million. CMHC Whoville 4x4 units totaling 2.6 million. Sweetgrass Manor renovations, 200,000. Wade LaFrance Memorial, Wade LaFrance and Whoville Roads, 2.2 million. And then they did a new magnetic door and fire alarm upgrade at Junganusida for $1 million. Important capital projects under construction, fiber to the home, Yohahio Trade Building, Yohahio Cultural Building, DCSX red beam system, and then AMPS Marine Unit expected completion. So AMPS is buying another bigger boat. Statement of financial positions, non-financial assets, land includes a $100,000 purchase for Campbell Road property, buildings and major infrastructure, $300,000 for water line construction, $200,000 renovation for adult education center, and $100,000 renovations at the detox. Equipment includes $500,000 for generators, $1 million in surveillance equipment for the schools, and $100,000 radios for police officers, and $100,000 for a harmonic gig. Don't ask me what that is because I don't know. And then roads, $300,000 for walking paths in 3 districts, and this vehicles, a new school bus for Amby, $400,000 for 8 new police vehicles, $600,000 for new fire truck, $300,000 for 2 DCSS vehicles, a pontoon for Thompson Island, some new vehicles in health, and a new vehicle for ARAP. Statement of financial position, accumulated surplus / reserves. So right now we are holding the Dunedee land claim, $240,000 for the trustees. That was a plus $12.3 million due to interest earned. Property, the plant and equipment, $11.4 million due to capitalization of assets less amortization, and then it is $15.5 increase due to unspent grant funding. OFNLP, $2.4 million due to unspent OLG funding. So this is a schedule, a statement of operations revenues, government transfers. We budgeted 128, we actually got 146 million in 2024, as opposed to the 137 million we got in 2023. OFNLP, which is our OLG RAMA money, we anticipated 5.7, we got 5.7 million, and that was up by 1.7 million from the previous year. So that RAMA, we did lose, OFNLP / RAMA money, we did lose during COVID, and it's climbed back up. Earnings from government business entities, 181,000, admin fees and user charges, 2.1 million, land leases, 719,000, interest, 19 million, other income and realized gains and losses, 438,000, unrealized gains, 3.5 million, and then rentals, 1.3 million. Statement of operations revenue, the majority of the revenues are recognized on a cost recovery basis. So that means we cannot recognize a revenue unless we have a matching expense. Anything that we don't match goes into either a repayable or into a deferral. A year-over-year increase of 14.4%. This contribution includes 10.9 million of IFN flow-throughs, interest income of 9 million driven by MCA General Funds of 6 million, and Dundee land claim of 3 million. Unrealized gains on investments is 2.7 million driven by land claim portfolio. So statement of operations revenue, this is just highlights of where that happened, and we saw increase of 5 million, AMP saw an increase of 1.7 million, DCSS negative 3 million, health 5.3, and underneath it just explains where those are coming from. Like this increase in health of 5.3, most of it is an IFN flow through. DIHE negative 3.1 million, lower, we didn't do as many capital projects as we should have. BFA 10.9 million, because I'm having all the interest income. And then executive services plus 3 million, an increase in OFLP funds, and 700,000 of additional basic need income assistance. And an economic development 1.6 million increase driven by the fiber to the home project. So operating expenses, this is broken down by departments. Board of Education, the actual results were 34.2 million in expenses. Police Services, 14.4 million in expenses. Community and Social Service, 19.4 million in expenses. ACDEV, 2.16 million in expenses. Executive Services, 5.3 million in expenses. Finance and Administration, 1.2 in expenses. Health, 41 million in expenses. Infrastructure and Housing, 12 million in expenses. Justice, 3.3 million in expenses, and Government, 5 million. So please note, we did come in under budget, and I'm only saying it because we are having issues giving people full complement of our staff. So statement of operations expenses, a year-over-year increase of 16.5%. Salaries and benefits driven by 2.6 million of annual salary increases in new positions and 5.1 of retroactive salaries. Program supplies, 8.8 million driven by 4.2 million of IFN flow through for daycare, early learning. And Jordan's principal IFN flow-through costs of 3.8 million. And we did a project, we helped all of 10 shelters in Ontario do a project where they had, I think, $1 million to furnish all these shelters, and we took that project on and helped them get it done. Professional fees increased by 2.2 million, driven mainly by 500,000 of healthcare providers at long-term nursing. So we have had to go through a third-party, employment agency to get enough PSWs at our homes to make sure we have enough staff complement to be in with laws, to comply to laws. 500,000 increase in mental health service providers, and 300,000 of children's aids and additional services. Student tuition and travel increased by $1 million by the use of COVID funds for post-secondary education. Statement of operation expenses, MB increased expenses by 9.4 million, again mainly driven by post-secondary, the flow-throughs from IFN, 2 million in schools and admin costs, and 700,000 geared toward Mohawk language. AMPS increase of expenses of 2.2 million, driven by additional police costs, additional 2.2 million of additional police supplies, $800,000 increase in ambulance costs, and 100,000 for a new initiative called Building Safer Communities. DCSS a decrease of 700,000, driven by 2.9 lower spending of least disruptive measures, and offset by $1 million in shelter funding and shelter expenses. And a $500,000 increase of basic needs assistance, an increase in health expenses by 4.4 million, driven mostly by the IFN flow through, and then they did a special little NHL that increased the cost of 300,000 for I think it was an anniversary last year, and then DIHE an increase of 1.5 million expenses. And it's mainly by the offset of the roads project and an increase of 300,000 for environmental costs. Note disclosures, as again I said, this is a new asset retirement obligation. The new accounting standard, PS 3280, which came into effect April 1st, 2023, requires all entities to report legal obligations associated with the eventual retirement of an asset. MCA has some buildings that would require some remediation work for the future removal and disposal of asbestos. MCA has not completed its analysis, as such does not fully determine a reasonable estimate of the valuation. So we don't know how much it's going to cost to get rid of the asbestos in these buildings. And it's the buildings that we're still occupying that were built in the 70s that we need to worry about. Due to the complexities involved in meeting this new reporting standard, MCA is not alone in meeting this requirement. Other areas of interest, CMHC, selling of assets. MCA disposed of a few CMHC, Section 95 rental homes. This disposal needs to be reconciled with CMHC. And with non-insured health benefits, potential liability issues as amounts owed to vendors is subject to dispute by some vendors, and potential liabilities are unavailable in the current non-insured health benefits system. So these are areas of concern that the auditor had found. We already began correcting the first one. The second one, we're looking at a more robust system for the non-insured health benefits program. Management's comments. Meeting has already occurred with CMHC, and there will be they will provide a path to reconcile that issue, and a non-insured health benefits RFP for the new system is in discussion. So Indigenous Services Canada review the financial health assessment of the First Nation. This is their comment. The financial health assessment of your First Nation was based on a calculation of the following three financial ratios, which serves as an indication of financial performance. Liquidity ratio, 4.5 favorable, a measure of an organization's ability to meet its short-term financial obligations. Sustainability ratio, 4.6 favorable, a measure of an organization's ability to sustain its financial capacity. Working capital to revenue ratio, 2.24, favorable, a measure of an organization's ability to generate sufficient cash flow to cover its operating expenses. A First Nation with three favorable financial indicators can expect to be able to meet all of its operational requirements in both short and long term. And we did include that is the actual audit. That concludes our presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
That last page you did with, this last page you did with, let me see, I think it's the next one. Not that one.
This one?
Something about, the percentages and,
The ratio one. Flip. The other way down, okay, the other way.
The last page.
Right there.
Right here.
Flip, wait a minute.
what ratio do you have to have? Because we're thinking of going on our own, right? So those numbers have to be where?
If you do a calculation of government funding, own source revenue compared to our expenses, we are 97% dependent on government funding. So going on our own, in what sense? You know, underneath the self-government, I mean, people look at it as a handout, but it's also, people can look at it as, what is it? It's what they owe us.
Reconciliation.
But that's what I mean, I don't know if we're at that point. I think we gotta work on it a little bit more before we get there.
Well, what we have to work on internally is how much does it really cost us? Because, can I go off the record? Can I have permission to go off the record?
Yeah, you can, yeah.
So, when we were actually doing the formulas with Indigenous Services Canada, you know, they showed us the salary formulations of how they were gonna pay people. And at the end, it had the nice calculation, and then it said times 0.7. So myself and our hired hand, comptroller, we said, why are you multiplying that calculation by 0.7? It's because we on First Nations aren't taxed when we work for our own community. So they were basically lowballing the salaries. So we made a big stink, they shut this sheet down, and they tried to divert us to another conversation. So what my point is how much does it really cost to run Akwesasne? How much to maintain our roads, how much to run our ambulances? Because, and we can go back on record now, because I've been across Canada to different First Nations, and we're not just a little municipality, we're a little country. We do services here that at the federal, provincial, municipal levels. You know, healthcare is a provincial responsibility, membership's a federal responsibility, land's a federal responsibility, roads and water are municipal responsibilities, policing is a municipal responsibility. So we're doing everything across the board. We are, and we need to be funded as such. So every time they come in and we start making that argument, they don't come back for a little while. But we need those numbers, but what we also need is we need our community to come home and work for us, because we need our own skilled people to start doing this work. So we're not at 100% capacity. We have a lot of areas inside the organization that we need people to work. So until we are at capacity, we don't know how much to run this show properly will be. And we need to find that out, because these people need to know those amounts when they go lobbying. I think I've gone off on a tangent long enough. Did I answer your question?
Yes, and that is a big concern of mine. What if we go, with Onerahtohkó and what happens is we go in debt? We go, you know, where we're begging.
It's just, they've promised actually more money through that. But we don't go there until we know how much everything's going to cost. So we're treading very carefully. I think we've been more careful than most First Nations. And you ask a lot of First Nations if they're happy, you know, I don't know what they're gonna tell you. They might not tell you they are. So I think we're playing it very smart because of our mistrust of the federal government. I think maybe that should go off the record too. as public, safety, secure, whatever, they're noting that.
Yeah, because a lot of times you are coming home from the cottage or whatever with your pontoon, and they're sitting there. I mean, you can't move them, you can't make them float. But, you know, they need their own dock, they just come, they're building on us.
Council's gonna put that on their notes, but that's not for the budget today.
Well, I'm sorry.
We're trying to keep going.
And that's behind Sweetgrass Manor?
What, sorry, Lace? Sorry.
Behind, the dock's behind Sweetgrass Manor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, she
Young
can.
ball.
Yes, you're right, Lacy. Yes. Melissa?
Okay, I think about maybe, I don't know, 11 or 12 papers ago, you were talking about, the wrong, you said if they find a wrong, okay, now what's an example of a wrong and who would they be?
The auditors? If the auditors find something, like I said, if one of our rules are any projects over $100,000 have to have an MCR. So whenever we see an expense come across, it's like, where's your MCR? And we do that in finance because our auditor will say, do you have an MCR for that project? So we have to actually dig it up and give it to them. So if we don't have an MCR to match that, then it puts a red light with them, and then they start digging further. Because they say, well, if this is wrong, what else is going to be wrong?
It's more or less accountability.
It's accountability, and audit time makes us accountable. Susan?
There's this purchase of land, it's not much money. Campo Road, I'm not sure why we would need to buy land.
It was
Buy
government,
its own some.
it was government surplus land, and it was at a very fair value, so when government, I don't know if you have a deal, I think council has a deal where if it's in our traditional territory, they have a right of first refusal, and they did find that it was affordable, and we are confined by our land limits, so we do have to start buying different areas of land. Different programs have looked at it for different programming, like a men's shelter, a women's shelter. It is way out in a rural area, so, but it is government surplus property. And they did MCR that one. Is there any more questions?
I have two questions online. The first one was, what was the total spent on fiber?
I can pull up my laptop. This is, the cost of fiber was rolled up into the environment. So I can't, not ECDF, sorry. No, different, we'll keep going down. The total cost, I believe, was $13 million, but I don't have the exact number with me. I can get that and we can announce it to whoever, if Ashley wants to take a name or an email address. We're not trying to hide anything, I just don't have that number with me right now.
And I had another question online. The other one was, how much money is in the special needs funds?
We did that. There's $8 million set aside in special needs. There's $8 million set aside, and there's about $1 million. So we put the $8 million in investment to generate interest, and we use the interest for special needs purposes. So there's about $1 million sitting there, about $900 and something thousand sitting there for special needs purposes. There are a number of other areas where we can tap into for special needs monies if needed. One is the FNCFS and one is Jordan's principal.
I have a couple of quick questions. First, what was the cost of the audit?
The cost of the audit? Hang on a minute. It would be, I don't know the exact cost off the top of my head. I can give you a ballpark. It was about probably $500,000.
Did you pay any other fees to the auditor for this fiscal year?
For this fiscal year, which fiscal year?
The one in question here,
Are you asking if we hired another, person to help us with our accounting through their wealth management group?
yes.
Yes.
Does that impair independence?
I wouldn't think so, they're at arm's length. You'll have that in the big four accounting firms all the time.
They're not a big four.
They're still at arm's length.
Sarbanes-Oxley in 2002 kind of narrowed the definition of independence. And the auditor is, or any relation to the auditor is not allowed to work in the finance department of any organization they audit, and that impairs independence.
Okay, we'll check that compliance and we'll make adjustments accordingly.
They, at a meeting I attended last summer, the auditor was on a committee for the new trust fund. The auditing partner was on the committee. And they also made a $1 million decision, according to that report that was shared with the community. Does that impair independence?
What do you mean they made a $1 million decision?
They were part of a committee that made a $1 million decision on the new trust fund.
What's the $1 million decision?
That information was shared with, council, last summer.
They were there, the auditor was there to protect the trustees' tax, obligations as being a trustee underneath the trust. They weren't there to make any operational decisions.
I think a $1 million decision to forward, trust funds of $1 million to the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne is definitely an operating decision.
But they didn't make that decision, council made that decision because it needed to go to MCR.
The document you gave us clearly stated they were on a committee that recommended to council.
Okay, I didn't put them on the committee, so that was past council members, that isn't even this council, so, you know, if it's water under the bridge.
It's 6 of these members here that helped make that decision, and it still impairs independence. The auditor is not independent.
So, okay,
And that shouldn't be shoved underneath the rug, I think,
well, I'm gonna take this back to them and question them to exactly what you're asking and probably get legal opinion on that also. So, I mean, you call that out, it's something we're going to have to look into, period.
I called it out at the last audit that I attended, and there seemed to have been fell on deaf ears, and here we are 2 years later, and it's still happening. And every meeting I attend, I read the information you provide us, and you guys are just digging deeper and deeper, and I think it's a whole lot of just perhaps lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, and we really need to, there's auditors all over the country taking advantage of First Nations peoples, First Nations government, and we are one of them. And when we refuse to go down that road because it's uncomfortable, what are we doing? We're allowing these people to come into town and do these. I mean, you've clearly stated I have a capacity issue, but I don't have a knowledge issue. And I don't have an independence issue either. I'm true to my people, and we're hiring people that are not true to our people. And I think that needs to be addressed seriously.
Well, I think we'll take it to the finance committee to have a sincere and serious discussion about it.
It clearly is not an issue for Welch. Of course they're gonna tell you, we're independent, we're not independent, we're clean. Of course they're gonna tell you that. That's what they do. Of course the lawyer's gonna tell you they're innocent, that's what they do.
I understand your point, and I hear what you're saying. And I think so does all of our finance committee.
Is the audit going up to RFP after this?
The audit is going up to RFP in the fall. We have to, it's time.
It's been how many years? I think he said he's been here since 2011.
It's overextended and we all realize that, yes. COVID has set us back a few years, but we're dusting off and moving forward.
Has he switched partners or he has been the only partner?
I don't know what his internal operations look like. What do you mean by partners? I know
The partner that signs the tax return is it been, or sorry, the audit report, has it always been him?
Yes, I think so.
Then he's the partner on the project, on the audit, and he shouldn't be. He should have switched roles after at least 7 years. So again, he's not independent, and he's not gonna tell you that, because he's coming from a small firm that doesn't have the capacity to switch auditors, switch partners that are, the partner in charge of the audit. So I also have a CPA degree, I understand, I'm an auditor, I know all questions I have to answer, and I have to answer honestly when I want to audit, and I can't understand how he answered these questions honestly.
I'm not him, I can't answer your question.
So, again, I think it's lack of knowledge rather than lack of capacity that you guys accuse me of.
Okay, does anybody else have any more questions?
Online, someone asked, who determines where OLG funding gets allocated?
Council. Council takes an active role in directing where the money will be spent in a given year. That it? Any other questions?
That's it? That's it? Okay, just to kind of add on a little bit, that's gonna, I think, help. When we're looking at, and I think these are really good questions, talking about our self-government agreement and such like that, I was talking with one of our sister communities, and they have a 70-30 split, meaning that 30% of their operations are from their own source revenue, and we need to get to that. One thing I want to say is that administration and council are working together now, and administration is looking at defining those actual costs. There's a lot of things that need to get in line, and they're sharpening their pencils, right? So at the same time, well, and that was my question as well, I attend the nation building, and these things, we need to know what are those actual costs, when we're out there lobbying, what is that gonna, the actual real totals here, and, should those things change, do we have a contingency plan? So those things are all a part of this financial planning. Just so you guys do know, I do have an MBA. I was a licensed financial professional in the United States. I also do know about the law you're referring to, and I do know about the auditing, and I'm gonna personally make sure that it is fair. Everything that we do, we have to be transparent about, but also to make sure we're in line with all applicable laws. So yes, I am a part of the finance committee. I do sit on that. I have noticed that as well about the auditor over there, and it was time for change, and it's going to change. So just so you know, that's something that I personally am going to be following up on. When we're looking at our budgets and stuff like that, and this is one little piece I'm gonna give credit where credit is due. Council is doing a lot of strategizing and administration right now, and with that, I have to give credit to council, I have to give credit to executive director, and I have to give credit to the director of finance and administration. They recently passed a resolution to give support the families and the households of Akwesasne for $1,000. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but you are all going to be getting that check. This is to help the families, so please give everyone a round of applause, please. Council is changing. We are working. Things are coming in line. It just takes some time. But now to that, and before I move on, is that council is also they're looking to you to the community. Council has met. We're strategizing. We're looking at developing a work plan. The first steps of that, we had meetings with administration. They're developing their needs. They're looking at, they give us their lobbying needs, potential projects in there, and we're gathering that data. And now it's your turn, the community, to step forward and to let your district chiefs know, what are your needs? What are things that you need in your districts? And, talk about those things and let them know that. They're gathering that data now. We do have a strategic plan coming up next week. It's gonna be something that's gonna be in the works, and we will show the community, here's all the projects we have, here's all the funding we have. Now, mind you, when you look at some of these dollars, you're thinking, $500 million, you can do whatever you want. That's not the way it works. Some of these monies have certain stipulations, and they have to be used only for that. But then this is where we need to say, okay, community, you wanna change? Well, we're changing. Now, you need to come out and tell us. You have to be vocal, please. We have a population of 10,000. Look how many are in this room tonight. We need more people to get involved. We need more of these voices. And then we can develop a more accurate work plan, because that is coming. So please, discuss this with your families, attend these meetings, these sessions like that, reach out to the district chiefs, let them know what your needs are. Again, we're gonna strategize, put it all together, and we will show you the plan. That's gonna be the game plan. So there's good stuff coming. Now with that, because we're following our agenda here, we're moving on to our next agenda item, which is to accept and approve the attached general meeting minutes dated Enniskó, March 27, 2025. Do we have him over? Chief Joanne, do we have a second? Chief Teresa without a H. Okay, discussion. Question? All in favor, please raise your hands. Online? Do we have a hand?
Helen, she said she approves.
Sure. Okay, so let the record show 11 for, 0 against, carried. Okay, and moving with that, we have a closing. It's time for a closing.
Just one thing.
What's that?
Are you guys staying on top of this crazy situation with the president, the crazy one down there? And the way our economy is going and how it'll affect us with the funding and stuff? You know what I mean?
Hey, we're going a little bit off topic because we don't really have discussions on the floor, but I will answer this just so you guys do know, and because yes, it's so, it's crazy these days. Yes, we're closely watching, all the connections, all the players in the game. We're strategizing, we're forming partnerships, we're protecting Ahkwesasne's best interests. Are making sure that our borders are still safe. We're looking at the economic impacts that we're having. We have a lot of things in the works, but then again, yes, we're preparing, we're strategizing, forming new partnerships. We're ready. That's the thing with all of this is because, there's so many unknowns. We could be getting a tweet right now that just changes things and it impacts everyone. However, we have enough partnerships formed now where we can get through these things together. And that's how we're gonna do it. I think out of all of this craziness, what it did was it gave the opportunity for us to partner. We're making those connections with people all over. I did meet with Mark Carney, and I really like that guy. He comes from a finance world, and him and I had a really good discussion. And even when he was running, I asked him, even if you don't get in, can Akwesasne still work with you? And he said yes. They were kind of shocked, but he said yes. He says because there's value there. So again, you're going to see a lot more of this stuff coming out, and we will talk about, give an update on our work plan at the next general meeting, which is on the 27th of May? 29th? 29th of May? Okay, and that's just 9 recreation. So again, good stuff coming, good questions. Okay, so do we have closing? Someone do a closing, please.
Gadios kandidato ho nune ni gwani guna dan jina ho din gwali wai tano doli wano na jiket kuskana dan gwani gun here with what's the because I didn't talk ni gwani guna.
Now, do we have a motion to adjourn? Chief Teresa with a H and second by Chief Lacey. All in favor, please raise your hands. And virtual? Did she raise her hand? Yes? Okay, so that's 11 for, 0 against, carried. The meeting is adjourned. Now everyone, coming out. See you at the general meeting. Remember, tell your family and friends, get everyone there.